I were 6 when I first sat on Santa's knee, though sat is generous. It were more like I were lowered, same as you'd lower a sack of coal, cautious but committed. I remember thinking his lap looked enormous, like a red velvet allotment, and wondering if once you sat down you ever really got up again. He smelled of oranges, old coats, and something medicinal. Not unpleasant, just experienced. Like the back room of a chemist that's seen things. His beard were thick and wiry, the sort that didn't just tickle your chin, but had opinions about it. And when he laughed, ho ho ho, it came from somewhere deep, like it had traveled up through his boots, past his knees, and only popped out his mouth at the last moment. The adults around us were all smiles and camera flashes, telling me to look happy as if I weren't currently perched on a mythical stranger dressed like a festive sofa. But Santa, this Santa, weren't daft. He leaned in, close enough that I could see the red veins in his cheeks and the little cracks round his eyes, and he said quietly, "Hi, kid, don't worry. I've had this job long enough. You won't fall off. Lost 3 reindeer mind, but never a child." That settled me. Black country logic, that did. I grew up in the sort of place where Christmas weren't about magic so much as logistics. Who's got the good extension lead? Whether the turkey'll fit in the oven? Which uncle's already arguing before pudding's even on the table? So when Santa asked me what I wanted, I didn't say something daft like world peace. I said, a bike with proper brakes. He nodded like I'd asked for planning permission. Good lad, he said. No point going fast if you can't stop. Only later did I realize he spoke like my granddad. Same dropped H's. Same way of stretching a word so it sounded tired before it finished. Same quiet confidence that said the world might be a mess, but it were our mess, and we'd get on with it. The baubles hanging behind us swung slightly as people shuffled past, catching the light. I remember staring at them, thinking they looked like tiny suns trapped on strings, and wondering if Santa hung them himself when nobody were looking. He noticed me looking and said, "Careful, stare too long and you'll see yourself in 'em." I laughed, though I didn't quite know why. Years went by. I grew up, grew taller, learned that Santas are often blokes from Dudley with a bad back and a decent overtime rate. I learned about mortgages and buses that don't turn up and how Christmas somehow costs more every year while feeling smaller. But that moment, me on his knee, him steady as a pub table, stuck. When my dad passed and the house went quiet in a way that weren't peaceful, I thought of that Santa, of how solid he'd felt, how safe, how he'd known instinctively that sometimes a kid don't need sparkle, just reassurance and a decent answer. Now I've got kids of my own. I watch them queue up, fidgeting, half excited, half suspicious, and every December, without fail, I clock the Santa before they do. I look for the ones who get it, the ones who lean in and talk soft, who don't rush, who understand that belief ain't about fools, it's about comfort. Last year, my youngest slid onto Santa's knee and froze. Santa winked at me and said, "Don't worry, Bab, I've still got me balance." And just like that for a second, I were 6 again. The lights were warmer, the world were steadier, and somewhere deep in that red coat, I reckon Santa smiled. Not because he were magic, but because he knew exactly what he were doing.